The airline's automated voice droned through my phone at 11:47 p.m. Flight 447 to Denver has been canceled due to severe weather conditions. I should have been annoyed. 3 days of meetings with potential contractors, all down the drain. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: relief at coming home to my wife. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Ethan Caldwell, and I've been managing construction projects in our little New England college town for 15 years. Good money, honest work, and it kept me busy enough to ignore the growing distance between Lydia and me. That night, driving through the empty streets toward our Victorian house on Elm Street, I actually smiled thinking about surprising her. The driveway was empty, which struck me as odd. Lydia's silver Audi was always parked there by 10 p.m. She was religious about her beauty sleep. I pulled my truck behind where her car should have been and grabbed my overnight bag from the passenger seat. The house was dark except for the porch light we always left on. I fumbled with my keys, noting that the living room curtains were drawn tight. Lydia usually left them open so she could see the street. Small details, but after 17 years of marriage, you notice when patterns change. "Lydia?" I called out as I stepped into the foyer. No answer. The house felt different somehow. Not just quiet, but deliberately silent, like someone was holding their breath. I dropped my bag and walked toward the kitchen, flipping on lights as I went. Everything looked normal. Dishes in the sink, her coffee mug from the morning still on the counter, the usual controlled chaos of our daily life. But something was off. That's when I heard the garage door rumbling to life. I froze in the kitchen doorway, checking my watch. 12:15 a.m. Where the hell was she coming from at this hour? I quickly turned off the lights I'd just switched on and moved to the front window, peering through a gap in the curtains. Lydia's Audi crept up the driveway with its headlights off. She sat in the car for nearly 5 minutes before getting out, moving carefully, quietly. Even from a distance, I could see she was wearing the black dress she'd bought last month, the one she said was for client dinners, but had never worn around me. I stepped back from the window and positioned myself in the living room, pretending to read a magazine in the lamplight. My heart was hammering, but I kept my breathing steady. Construction work teaches you patience, and right now I needed every ounce of it. The front door opened with the softest click. "Ethan?" Lydia's voice was barely above a whisper, surprised and definitely not pleased. "Hey, beautiful," I said, looking up with what I hoped was a casual smile. "Flight got canceled. Thought I'd surprise you." She stood frozen in the doorway, purse clutched against her chest like a shield. Her lipstick was gone, her hair slightly mussed despite her obvious attempt to fix it in the car. But it was her eyes that told the real story, wide with something between panic and guilt. I couldn't sleep, so I went for a drive," she said, the words tumbling out too quickly. "You know how I get when you're away." Lydia had never, not once in 17 years, gone for a midnight drive when she couldn't sleep. She took melatonin and put on nature sounds. She'd told me this at least 50 times. "Long drive," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Your dress looks nice." "New?" She glanced down as if she'd forgotten what she was wearing. "This old thing? I just threw it on." The black dress still had the tags when I'd seen it in her closet 2 weeks ago. I'd watched her cut them off before leaving for what she'd called a marketing strategy dinner with her team. Apparently, it was the kind of dress you just threw on for midnight drives now. "I'm going to shower," she said, already moving toward the stairs. "Long day tomorrow." I nodded and watched her climb the steps, noting how she avoided looking back at me. The moment I heard the bathroom door close and the water start running, I was in motion. Her purse sat on the hall table where she'd dropped it. I'd never gone through Lydia's things before. It had never occurred to me to distrust her. But the woman who'd just walked through that door wasn't the wife I'd left 3 days ago. Inside her purse, underneath her wallet and makeup bag, I found something that stopped my world cold: a second phone. It was an older iPhone, nothing fancy, but it was password protected and had been recently used. The screen showed 2 missed calls from D at 11:52 p.m. and 12:03 a.m., right around the time she would have been driving home. My hands were shaking as I took pictures of the phone with my own device, capturing the missed calls, the lock screen, everything. I put it back exactly where I'd found it and moved to the kitchen, my mind racing. 17 years of marriage, 2 miscarriages that nearly broke us both, the house we'd renovated together room by room, making it our sanctuary, the dreams we'd shared about growing old together in this place, all of it suddenly felt like a lie. The water was still running upstairs when I made my first decision. I opened my laptop and forwarded the photos to my personal email, then deleted them from my phone. Whatever was happening, I needed to be smart about it. By the time Lydia came downstairs in her robe, I was back in my chair with the magazine, looking like a man who'd been reading about power tools for the past 20 minutes. "I'm exhausted," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "I think I'll head to bed." "I'll be up in a few minutes," I replied. "Just want to finish this article." She nodded and disappeared upstairs again. I heard our bedroom door close, then the soft squeak of our bed as she settled in. I waited another 10 minutes before following her up. Lydia was lying on her side, facing away from me, her breathing already deep and regular. Either she was an incredible actress, or the stress of whatever she'd been doing had genuinely exhausted her. I slipped into bed as quietly as possible and stared at the ceiling for the next 4 hours. At 6 a.m., her alarm went off as usual. She got up, showered again, and went through her normal morning routine as if nothing had happened. I pretended to sleep through it all, watching her through barely open eyes. She was checking her regular phone when the second phone buzzed from inside her purse downstairs. I saw her freeze, then quickly finish getting dressed. "I have an early meeting," she said to my supposedly sleeping form. "I'll grab coffee on the way." The front door closed at 6:47 a.m. By 7:15, I was in my truck, following her silver Audi from a careful distance. She didn't go to her office. Instead, she drove to the Riverside Diner on the outskirts of town, a place we'd never been together. Through the window, I watched her slide into a booth across from a man I recognized but had never actually met, David Turner, owner of the upscale fitness club where Lydia had been spending so much time lately. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of the hardware store across the street, watching my wife laugh at something David Turner was saying. He reached across the table and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. That's when I knew for certain that my marriage was over. The only question now was what I was going to do about it. I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. My foreman, Nate Rodriguez, didn't buy it for a second. "You sound like someone who just got kicked in the gut," he said over the phone. "What's going on, Eth?" Nate and I had been friends since high school, worked together for the past decade. He was the kind of guy who'd help you bury a body and never ask questions, but he'd also talk you out of needing to bury it in the first place. "Can't talk about it yet," I said, "but I might need some advice soon. You know where to find me." I spent the morning researching private investigators online. The third name on my list was Clifford Harris, a former state police detective who'd gone private after taking early retirement. His website was simple and professional. Discreet, thorough, results. His office was above a bakery on Main Street, the kind of place that smelled like coffee and fresh bread. Clifford himself looked exactly like what central casting would order for an ex-cop: gray hair, steady eyes, and the kind of handshake that meant business. "Matrimonial investigation," he said after I'd explained the basics. "How long have you suspected?" Honestly, I didn't. Not until last night. I showed him the photos from Lydia's phone and told him about the diner meeting. "David Turner," Clifford nodded. "I know the name. Married to Jennifer, the nurse over at County Hospital. Nice woman. This would destroy her if it's what we think it is. What do you need from me? Time and patience. These things take a few weeks to document properly. You'll want solid evidence if this goes to divorce court. He leaned back in his chair. Can you act normal at home? I thought about that. I've been pretending everything's fine for months without realizing it. What's a few more weeks? That evening, Lydia came home at her usual time with takeout from our favorite Chinese restaurant. She was chattier than she'd been in weeks, asking about my canceled trip, telling me about her day. If I hadn't seen her holding hands with David Turner that morning, I would have thought we were having a breakthrough. I was thinking, she said over lo mein and sweet and sour chicken, maybe we should take a vacation soon. Just the two of us. Remember how much fun we had in Vermont last fall? Vermont had been wonderful. We'd stayed at a bed and breakfast, hiked mountain trails, made love like newlyweds. It was the last time I remembered feeling completely connected to her. That sounds great, I said, twirling noodles around my fork. When were you thinking? Maybe next month? I might have some time between projects. I nodded and smiled and played the part of the loving husband while my mind cataloged every lie. The way she'd started working late 3 nights a week. The new lingerie I'd glimpsed in the laundry but never seen her wear. The credit card statements I'd stopped paying attention to, trusting her to handle our finances like she always had. After dinner, while she watched TV in the living room, I retreated to my home office and started going through our bank records. What I found made my stomach turn. Charges at expensive restaurants on nights she'd claimed to be working late. A hotel bill from 2 weeks ago when she'd supposedly been at a marketing conference in Boston. Except the hotel was local, just 20 minutes away. Purchases at Victoria's Secret, a jewelry store, a wine shop that specialized in champagne. She was spending our money on her affair. I printed everything and locked it in my desk drawer. Then I went back to the living room and sat beside her on the couch, watching some romantic comedy she'd picked. This is nice, she said, curling up against me. We should do this more often. Absolutely, I agreed, stroking her hair while mentally calculating how much of our savings she'd spent on David Turner. The next morning I followed her again. This time she actually went to work, but she left at lunch and drove to Turner's gym. She was inside for 2 hours, longer than any workout she'd ever done. I called Clifford from the parking lot. I need to know about Jennifer Turner, I said. David's wife. What kind of information? Does she know? And if she doesn't, how do we tell her? There was a long pause. That's not usually how I handle these cases, Mr. Caldwell. This isn't a usual case. If we're going to expose this thing, she deserves to know what her husband is doing. Another pause. Let me make some inquiries. That evening, Lydia announced she'd be working late again the next night. Big presentation on Friday, she explained. The team wants to run through everything one more time. I nodded sympathetically and offered to pick up dinner for her to eat when she got home. She kissed my cheek and told me I was sweet. The next night, while Lydia was supposedly working late, I drove past her office building. The parking lot was nearly empty, and her car wasn't there. I called the main number and asked for her. Ms. Caldwell left around 5:30, the receptionist told me. Can I take a message? No message, I said. I'll catch her tomorrow. At 9:47 p.m., I was parked outside Turner's gym when Lydia's Audi pulled into the back lot. She sat in the car for a few minutes before David Turner emerged from a side door. He looked around carefully before approaching her car and getting into the passenger seat. I took photos with the telephoto lens Clifford had loaned me. 20 minutes later, they both got out. Turner kissed her before going back inside. Lydia sat in her car for another 5 minutes, checking her makeup in the mirror before driving home. She walked through our front door at 10:23 p.m., looking appropriately tired from her fake work session. How did the presentation prep go? I asked. Exhausting, she sighed. but I think we're ready for Friday. I'm proud of you, I said, and I almost meant it. She was certainly putting effort into her performance. The next morning, Clifford called with news about Jennifer Turner. She's suspicious but doesn't have proof, he reported. Her husband's been distant, working late, taking private calls. Sound familiar? Very. Think she'd be willing to meet? I can arrange it. But are you sure about this approach? It's going to get messy fast. I thought about Lydia kissing David Turner in the gym parking lot while I sat home like an idiot, heating up leftover Chinese food for her late-night snack. It's already messy, I said. Time to clean house. Jennifer Turner was nothing like I'd expected. When Clifford arranged for us to meet at a coffee shop in the next town over, I'd pictured someone fragile, maybe defeated by her husband's betrayal. Instead, I found a woman with steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. She was sitting in a corner booth when I arrived, her nurse's scrubs suggesting she'd come straight from the hospital. Dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, no makeup, but she had the kind of natural beauty that didn't need enhancement. More importantly, she had the look of someone who'd made a decision and wouldn't be talked out of it. "You must be Ethan," she said as I approached. Her handshake was firm, professional. "Clifford told me about your situation. I'm sorry." "I'm sorry too," I replied, sliding into the booth across from her. "How long have you known?" "Known for certain?" "About an hour before I agreed to this meeting. Suspected?" 3 months. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. "David's been different. Secretive. Happy in a way that had nothing to do with me or our life together." I understood that feeling completely. "Clifford showed you the photos?" She nodded. "David leaving your wife's car Tuesday night. It explains a lot. The late nights at the gym, the new cologne, the way he's been guarding his phone like it contains state secrets. What do you want to do about it?" Jennifer's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "I want to destroy them, both of them, completely and publicly." I liked her already. "I've been documenting everything for 2 weeks," I continued. "Financial records, photos, timeline of their meetings, Clifford's helping with the surveillance." "I can do better than surveillance," Jennifer said. "I have access to David's computer at home. He thinks I'm too trusting to snoop, but 12 years of marriage teaches you where all the passwords are hidden." Over the next hour, we laid out everything we knew. David and Lydia had been meeting regularly for at least 4 months, possibly longer. They used Turner's gym after hours, occasionally met at restaurants outside of town, and had been to the Riverside Motel at least 3 times based on credit card records. "The thing that kills me," Jennifer said, "is how stupid they think we are. David told me he was installing new equipment at the gym all those nights he came home late. Your wife probably had equally creative excuses. Marketing conferences, late client meetings, team-building exercises." I counted them off on my fingers. I actually felt guilty for not being more supportive of her career advancement. "We're going to make them pay for that," Jennifer said with quiet certainty. "The question is how." I'd been thinking about that for days. Depends on what you want out of this. Divorce, public humiliation, financial compensation. All of the above. Jennifer's voice was steady, controlled. "David thinks he can trade me in for a newer model and keep his reputation intact. He's about to learn otherwise." "What about your friends? People you both know?" Jennifer's expression darkened. "That's actually the worst part. I think some of them already know and just haven't told me. David's been bringing Lydia around the gym for months, introducing her as a potential business partner. I should have seen it then." I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. "What do you mean, bringing her around?" "Social events. The gym's anniversary party last month, the charity fundraiser in March. She was there as his guest while you were... Where were you those nights?" I thought back. The anniversary party had been on a Saturday when I'd been working overtime on the Morrison project. trying to finish before the weather turned. The charity event was the night I'd stayed home with what I'd thought was food poisoning. Working, or sick, very convenient timing. They've been playing us, Ethan, making sure we were out of the picture while they played house in public. Jennifer pulled out her phone and scrolled through photos. Look at this. She showed me a picture from the gym's Facebook page, David and Lydia at the charity event, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing at something off camera. The caption read, David Turner with marketing consultant Lydia Caldwell, discussing potential partnerships. The photo had 12 likes and 3 comments, all from people I recognized. Couples we'd had dinner with, neighbors who'd been to our house for barbecues. They'd all seen my wife on another man's arm and said nothing. How many people knew? I asked. Enough, Jennifer replied grimly. Which means when we expose this thing, we're not just taking down David and Lydia. We're showing everyone exactly what kind of friends we really have. That evening, I went through the motions of normal married life while my mind worked on the problem. Lydia made dinner, pasta with marinara sauce, nothing fancy, and we talked about our days like we had thousands of times before. She told me about a difficult client, asked about my current project, mentioned that she might need to work late again next week. The Turner account is really heating up, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. David's got some big expansion plans for the gym. I nearly choked on my wine. She was actually going to sit there and talk about her lover while I pretended not to know. That's great, honey, I managed. You've always been good at helping people grow their businesses. After dinner, while Lydia watched television, I retreated to the basement workshop where I did my best thinking. Surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, I called Jennifer. I've been thinking about timing, I said. When do we make our move? Soon, she replied. David's planning something for next weekend. He told me he has to work Saturday night, but I found a receipt for dinner reservations at that new place overlooking the lake. Table for 2. Lydia mentioned she might have to work late Saturday. Team building exercise. Perfect. We'll have them both in one place, caught red-handed. Jennifer paused. Are you ready for this, Ethan? Once we start, there's no going back. I looked around my workshop, at the projects Lydia and I had planned together, the home we'd built. In a few days, it would all be different. I'm ready, I said. Let's burn it all down. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp October weather that made our little town look like a postcard. Lydia spent the morning doing yoga and reading, the picture of relaxed domesticity. If I hadn't known better, I would have thought she was genuinely looking forward to a quiet day at home. What time is your team thing tonight? I asked over coffee and the newspaper. 7:30, she replied without looking up from her magazine. Probably won't be home until late. Don't wait up. I nodded and went back to the sports section, playing my part perfectly. At noon, I kissed her goodbye and told her I was meeting Nate to look at a potential job site. That part was actually true. I'd asked Nate to cover for me if anyone asked, and he'd agreed without questions. Good friends don't need explanations. Jennifer and I met at a parking garage downtown, then took her car to stake out the restaurant. La Bella Vista was new, expensive, and isolated, exactly the kind of place you'd take someone if you didn't want to be seen by people you knew. There, Jennifer said at 7:45 p.m., pointing toward the entrance. David's car. I watched my wife get out of the passenger seat of David Turner's BMW, smoothing down the red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She looked beautiful and happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. She's wearing the dress I gave her, I said quietly. Jennifer's hand found my shoulder. I'm sorry. I know this is hard. Actually, it's not as hard as I thought it would be, I realized. I'm more angry than hurt at this point. We waited in Jennifer's car for 20 minutes, giving them time to get settled in order. Then Jennifer walked into the restaurant alone while I positioned myself outside with the camera. The plan was simple. Jennifer would approach their table, introduce herself to Lydia, and create enough of a scene to draw attention. I would document everything from outside, getting photos of their faces when they realized they'd been caught. Through the restaurant's large windows, I watched Jennifer navigate between tables toward the back corner where David and Lydia sat. They were leaning close together, sharing an appetizer, completely absorbed in each other. Jennifer's arrival was like dropping a stone into still water. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw David's face go white. Lydia looked confused at first, then horrified as understanding dawned. Jennifer remained calm, professional, speaking in what appeared to be a normal conversational tone, while other diners began to notice the tension. David stood up, gesturing angrily. Jennifer stepped back but continued talking. Lydia buried her face in her hands. That's when I got the shots I needed. David Turner looking guilty and furious, Lydia Caldwell caught in the act, Jennifer Turner standing tall and dignified while her world fell apart. The confrontation lasted less than 5 minutes. Jennifer walked out of the restaurant with her head high, while David and Lydia sat in stunned silence. I met her at the car. "How do you feel?" I asked as we drove away. "Powerful," she said. "For the first time in months, I feel like I have some control over my life." "What did you say to them?" "I introduced myself to your wife as David's soon-to-be ex-wife. Then I told them both that their spouses knew everything, and that they should enjoy their dinner because it was the last one they'd be having together for a while." I had to admire her style. "What happens now?" "Now we go home and wait for them to come to us." Lydia arrived home at 9:17 p.m., 2 hours earlier than she'd planned. I was in the living room, reading a book and listening for her car. She came through the front door like she was walking to her own execution. "Ethan?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "In here," I called back. She appeared in the doorway, still wearing the red dress, her makeup smudged, her hands shaking slightly. "We need to talk," she said. "Yes, we do." I closed my book and looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. "How was your team building exercise?" The lie died on her lips. She stood there for a long moment, then sank into the chair across from me. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. "How long has it been going on?" "Since June." Her voice was barely above a whisper. 4 months. A third of a year of lies, deception, and betrayal. 4 months of me thinking we were just going through a rough patch while she was building a new life with someone else. "Do you love him?" I asked. She was crying now, silent tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. "I don't know. I thought I did. I thought I loved the way he made me feel." "How did he make you feel?" "Young. Exciting. Like I was someone worth pursuing instead of someone you just lived with." That stung because there was truth in it. We had fallen into routines, taken each other for granted, but that didn't justify what she'd done. "So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it?" "I didn't decide anything. It just happened." "Bullshit." The word came out harder than I'd intended. "You made choices, Lydia. Hundreds of them. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you spent our money on him, those were choices." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you pack a bag and find somewhere else to stay while we figure out the divorce." "Ethan, please, can't we try to work this out? Go to counseling or something?" I thought about the photos on my phone, the credit card statements locked in my desk drawer, the 4 months of lies she'd told while looking me in the eye. "No," I said. "We can't." Lydia moved in with her sister across town, taking only what she could fit in 2 suitcases. She kept apologizing, kept asking if we could find a way to fix things, kept acting like this was something that had happened to us instead of something she had chosen to do. I filed for divorce on Monday morning. By Tuesday, word had spread through our small town like wildfire. I discovered that Jennifer had been right about our friends. Several of them had known about the affair and said nothing. The betrayal went deeper than just my marriage. Tom and Sarah Mitchell, our neighbors for 8 years, had hosted the barbecue where Lydia first met David Turner. They'd watched their relationship develop and never said a word to me. When Tom tried to call Tuesday evening to explain, I let it go to voicemail. "Ethan, buddy, I know you're upset, but you have to understand our position. It wasn't our place to get involved in your marriage. We hoped it would blow over, that Lydia would come to her senses. We never wanted to see you get hurt." I deleted the message without finishing it. Wednesday brought a call from David Turner himself. "We need to talk," he said when I answered. His voice was tight, controlled. "No, we don't. This affects both our families. We should handle it like adults." "Adults don't sleep with other people's wives," I replied. "But sure, let's meet. How about your gym, tonight at 8? I'll bring Jennifer." There was a long pause. "That's not what I had in mind." "I'm sure it isn't. See you at 8. I called Jennifer immediately. "He wants to meet," I told her. "Probably to try to work out some kind of arrangement where we all stay quiet and handle this privately." "Fat chance," Jennifer said. "I've already filed for divorce and I'm taking half of everything he owns, including the gym." "How's that possible?" "Turns out I'm part owner. David put the business in both our names for tax purposes when we got married. He's about to learn that was a mistake." That evening, Jennifer and I walked into Turner's Fitness together. The gym was closed to regular members, but David was waiting for us in his office. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in the past week. "Jennifer, Ethan, thank you for coming." He stood up, trying to project authority in his own space. "I think we can work something out that's beneficial for everyone." "I'm listening," I said, settling into a chair across from his desk. Jennifer remained standing. "Obviously, our marriages are over. That's unfortunate, but it's reality. The question is how we handle the aftermath. We could drag this through the courts, air our dirty laundry in public, hurt a lot of people who don't deserve it. Or we could be civilized about the whole thing." "Define civilized," Jennifer said coldly. "Quick, quiet divorces. No public scenes, no social media drama, no trying to turn people against each other. We split our assets fairly and move on with our lives." I almost laughed. "You mean we pretend this never happened so you and Lydia can continue your relationship without any consequences?" "I mean we act like mature adults instead of vindictive children." Jennifer stepped forward, placing her hands on David's desk and leaning toward him. "David, sweetheart, let me explain something to you. You forfeited the right to a civilized divorce the moment you decided to parade my replacement around town while I was working double shifts at the hospital. You want to see vindictive? You haven't seen anything yet." David's composure cracked. "Jennifer, be reasonable. Half the gym is worth more than you'd get in alimony." "I'm not taking half the gym," Jennifer said with a smile that would have made a shark proud. "I'm taking all of it. Turns out that when you use marital assets to conduct an affair, like taking your girlfriend to expensive restaurants and buying her gifts, it's considered dissipation of marital property. My lawyer thinks I have an excellent case for getting everything." The color drained from David's face. "You can't do that." "Watch me." I stood up, having heard enough. "David, here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay away from my wife until our divorce is final. You're going to liquidate whatever assets Jennifer doesn't take, and you're going to disappear from this town. If I see you at the grocery store, at a restaurant, at a gas station, anywhere I might run into you, I'm going to make your life very uncomfortable." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm promising you, I know every contractor, electrician, plumber, and handyman in this county. Good luck getting anyone to work on your house, your car, or anything else you might need fixed." David looked back and forth between Jennifer and me, finally understanding that he'd miscalculated badly. "This is insane," he said. "We're all adults here. These things happen. People fall out of love, fall in love with someone else. It doesn't have to be World War III. "You're right," I said. "It doesn't have to be. But it's going to be anyway." Jennifer and I left him sitting in his office, staring at the ruins of his carefully planned future. "That felt good," Jennifer said as we walked to our cars. "It's just the beginning," I replied. "Tomorrow, things get really interesting." Thursday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was drinking coffee and reviewing divorce paperwork when someone knocked on my front door at 7:30 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw Tom Mitchell shifting nervously on my porch. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. "Ethan, we need to clear the air," Tom said. "Sarah's been crying for 2 days. She feels terrible about the whole situation." "She should feel terrible," I replied. "You both should. We were trying to protect you, man. We thought if we didn't encourage it, maybe it would just fade away." "How exactly does watching my wife cheat on me protect me, Tom?" He had no answer for that. "Here's the thing," I continued. "You and Sarah made a choice. You decided that keeping Lydia's secret was more important than our friendship. That's fine, but there are consequences. Don't call me, don't come over here, and don't expect things to go back to normal when this is all over." "Ethan, come on. We've been friends for 8 years. "No, we haven't. Friends don't do what you did. What you did was watch me get played for a fool and decide it was entertaining enough to keep quiet about." I closed the door in his face. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Nate. "You need to get down to the job site," he said. "We've got a problem." I arrived at our current project, a renovation of the old Hartwell mansion, to find 3 of my crew standing around looking uncomfortable. Nate met me at the truck. "Mike, Danny, and Jose all quit this morning," he said. "Same story from all of them. Their wives don't want them working for you anymore." What the hell does that mean? Apparently, word's gotten around about the divorce. Some people are taking sides, and it's not going the way you'd expect. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Explain." "The story making the rounds is that you're being vindictive and unreasonable. That Lydia made a mistake, but she's sorry, and you're trying to destroy her life instead of being the bigger man and forgiving her." "Who's spreading that story?" "Take a guess." I didn't need to guess. Lydia had always been good at managing her image, and apparently she was managing this situation too. "What about the rest of the crew?" "Still here, still working. But Ethan, if this keeps up, we're going to have problems finishing the job." I spent the rest of the morning making phone calls, trying to replace the workers I'd lost. It was harder than it should have been. Word had definitely gotten around, and not everyone was sympathetic to my position. That afternoon, I drove to Jennifer's house. She lived in a tidy colonial about 10 minutes from the gym, with a garden that showed the kind of care that comes from actually being home in the evenings. "I'm losing workers," I told her as we sat in her kitchen. "Lydia's been talking to people, spinning the story her way." "David's doing the same thing," Jennifer replied. "According to him, we're the vindictive ex-spouses who can't accept that people sometimes fall out of love. He's painting himself and Lydia as star-crossed lovers being persecuted by their bitter former partners." "Are you having second thoughts about this approach?" Jennifer's laugh was sharp. "Hell no. If anything, I'm more determined. They want to play the victim? Let's give them something to really complain about." "What do you have in mind?" "Saturday night is the annual Chamber of Commerce dinner. Big social event. Everyone who's anyone in town will be there. David's supposed to give a presentation about local business partnerships." I could see where this was going. And I think it's time everyone learned the truth about his partnership with your wife. The chamber dinner was held at the country club, the kind of event where people dressed up and pretended to care about civic responsibility while networking and gossiping. Lydia and I had attended together for the past 5 years. This year, I was going alone. I arrived fashionably late after the cocktail hour had loosened tongues and lowered inhibitions. The dining room was full of familiar faces, business owners, local politicians, the social elite of our small town. Many of them looked uncomfortable when they saw me, unsure how to handle the awkwardness of my situation. David Turner was holding court near the bar, looking confident and relaxed. He'd brought Lydia as his date, and she was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before. They looked happy, comfortable, like a couple who belonged together. I found Jennifer at a table near the back, stunning in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Ready for this?" she asked as I sat down beside her. "More than ready." David's presentation was scheduled for after dinner. He took the podium at 9:15, looking every inch the successful businessman as he talked about the importance of local partnerships and community investment. "Business relationships, like all relationships, are built on trust," he said, clicking through slides showing the gym's growth over the past year. "When we find the right partners, people who share our vision and values, amazing things can happen." That's when Jennifer stood up. "Excuse me, David," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the room. "I have a question about partnerships." The room went silent. David's smile faltered as he recognized his wife's voice. "Jennifer, this isn't really the appropriate—" "I think it's very appropriate," Jennifer interrupted, walking toward the front of the room. "You're talking about trust and shared values. I'd like to know how those principles apply to your partnership with Lydia Caldwell." You could have heard a pin drop. Every head in the room turned to look at Lydia, who had gone pale as paper. "I'm not sure what you're implying," David said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'm not implying anything," Jennifer replied. "I'm stating facts. You've been having an affair with Mrs. Caldwell for the past 4 months. You've used gym facilities for your meetings, spent marital assets on your relationship, and lied to both your spouse and hers about the nature of your business partnership." The room erupted in whispers and gasps. David stood frozen at the podium while Lydia pushed back from her table and headed for the exit. "Furthermore," Jennifer continued, "you're both here tonight, presenting yourselves as a couple, while your respective divorce proceedings are still pending. I thought the Chamber of Commerce should know exactly what kind of business partnerships you're promoting." She turned to address the room directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption, but I thought you should know that the man talking to you about trust and values has been lying to his wife for months while conducting an affair with another member's spouse. These are the people asking for your support and investment." Jennifer walked calmly back to our table while chaos erupted around us. David had abandoned the podium and was pushing through the crowd toward the exit, presumably chasing after Lydia. Half the room was staring at us. The other half was pulling out phones to capture the drama. "How do you feel?" I asked Jennifer as we watched the fallout unfold. "Like I just took out the trash," she replied. "What about you?" I looked around the room at all the people who'd known about the affair and said nothing, who'd been prepared to let me live as a fool while my wife played house with another man. "I feel like we're just getting started," I said. The Chamber of Commerce dinner made the local newspaper's front page. Not the business section, the actual front page, with a headline that read, "Local Business Owners Affair Exposed at Civic Event." The article was carefully worded to avoid libel, but it included enough details to make the situation clear to anyone who read it. By Monday morning, David Turner's gym had lost 12 memberships. By Wednesday, it was up to 30. Local businesses started canceling their corporate wellness programs. The charity fundraiser he'd been planning was quietly moved to a different venue. Lydia fared even worse. Her marketing firm, which depended heavily on local clients and word-of-mouth referrals, began hemorrhaging accounts. The conservative business community that had once embraced her was suddenly uncomfortable with her services. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt empty. "Buyer's remorse?" Jennifer asked when I shared this with her over coffee Thursday morning. "Maybe. I just thought I'd feel more satisfied when they got what was coming to them." "The satisfaction comes later," Jennifer said. "Right now, you're still processing the loss of your marriage. The anger feels good because it's easier than grief." She was right, of course. For all my talk of revenge and consequences, I was still mourning the end of 17 years with someone I'd loved completely. Any regrets? I asked her. About David? None. About the public humiliation? Maybe a few. I could have handled it more privately. She stirred her coffee thoughtfully. But then again, they made our private business public when they started flaunting their relationship around town. Fair's fair. That afternoon, I got a call I'd been expecting for weeks. "Ethan, it's Lydia. Please don't hang up." I didn't hang up, but I didn't say anything either. "I know you hate me," she continued. "I know I've destroyed everything good between us, but I need to ask you for something." "I'm listening." "Can we please handle the rest of this divorce quietly? I've lost most of my clients. David and I aren't even speaking anymore, and I'm basically starting my life over from scratch. I can't take much more public humiliation." There was something in her voice I'd never heard before, genuine defeat. Not the manipulative sadness she'd used to try to win me back, but real desperation. "What are you offering?" I asked. "Whatever you want. The house, the cars, most of our savings. I just want to disappear and rebuild somewhere else." It was more than I'd expected to get from the divorce proceedings, but it felt hollow somehow. "I'll think about it," I said. "Thank you. And Ethan, I really am sorry. Not just about getting caught, but about all of it. You deserved better." She hung up before I could respond. That evening, I walked through the house Lydia and I had shared, really seeing it for the first time in weeks. The kitchen where we'd cooked dinner together thousands of times. The living room where we'd watched movies and argued about the thermostat. The bedroom where we'd made love and planned our future. It occurred to me that my revenge had been successful beyond my wildest expectations. David Turner was facing financial ruin and social exile. Lydia had lost her business, her reputation, and her lover. They'd both gotten exactly what they deserved. So why did I feel like I'd lost too? Friday morning brought unexpected news. Jennifer called at 7 a.m., her voice tight with excitement. "David's leaving town," she said. "He's selling the gym to a chain and moving to Florida. His lawyer called mine this morning to finalize the divorce settlement." "What about Lydia?" "What about her? Is she going with him?" "I don't know, and I don't care," Jennifer said. "My part in this is over. I got what I wanted. David's gone. I'm getting a fair settlement, and everyone knows the truth about what happened. But I found that I did care, which surprised me. Despite everything she'd done, I didn't want Lydia to end up completely alone and destroyed. I called her that afternoon. "David's leaving town," I said without preamble. "I know. He told me yesterday." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Are you going with him?" "He didn't ask me to." That answered that question. "Lydia, about the divorce settlement, I meant what I said, Ethan. Take whatever you want. I just want this to be over. What if I don't want everything? What if we split things fairly and you take your half to start over somewhere else?" There was a long silence. "Why would you do that?" she asked finally. "Because 17 years should count for something, even if it ended badly. I don't deserve your generosity. No, you don't. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I need to be able to live with myself when all this is over." We finalized the divorce 2 weeks later. Lydia got enough money to relocate and start fresh, though not enough to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. She moved to Portland, where she had a college friend who offered her a job with a small marketing company. David Turner disappeared to Florida as promised, leaving behind a trail of debts and bad feelings. Jennifer bought a small house closer to the hospital and seemed genuinely happy for the first time since I'd met her. As for me, I kept the house and most of our assets, but more importantly, I kept my self-respect. I'd been betrayed, lied to, and made a fool of, but I'd handled it with more grace than I'd thought possible. The final chapter came 6 months later, when I ran into Tom Mitchell at the hardware store. He'd been trying to repair his deck himself, after I'd made it clear that local contractors wouldn't work for him. "Ethan," he said awkwardly, "how are you doing?" "I'm doing fine, Tom. How's the deck coming along?" "It's challenging. Listen, I know things got heated between us, but maybe we could—" "No," I said simply. "We can't. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. You made your choice when you decided to keep Lydia's secret. I made mine when I decided that loyalty actually means something." I left him standing in the lumber aisle, still holding a piece of warped decking that he'd never figure out how to install properly. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a beer, looking out at the garden Lydia and I had planted together 3 springs ago. The roses were blooming, indifferent to the human drama that had unfolded around them. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Drinks tonight? I'm buying." I smiled and typed back, "On my way." Some endings are beginnings in disguise, some revenge is really just clearing the way for something better. And sometimes, the best victory is simply surviving with your integrity intact. I locked up the house and drove toward town, toward friendship and possibility, leaving the past where it belonged, behind me.